show money can buy. 99 cents, 99 cents. That show money can buy. 99 cents, 99 cents. That show money can buy. 99 cents, 99 cents. That show money can buy. 99 cents. Best show money can buy. 99 cents, 99 cents. Oh yeah. 99 cents, 99 cents. 99 cents, that's all. 99 cents, 99 cents. Oh, you can find it in your couch. 99 cents, 99 cents. It's only 99 cents. 99 cents. 99 cents. 99 cents. Hey, yeah. 99 cents. 99 cents.
Well, hello. What's up? Live from the Stump for a Sunday, July 16th episode of the 99 Cent Show.
I didn't even know we were working today because it was Father's Day.
It is Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day, sir.
That's
good to
very
see you,
nice.
Captain.
Good to see you too, Chronic. It's nice of you. It's nice that you're here this weekend.
Oh yeah.
As always, we haven't done a Sunday show in a while.
In a little bit.
But we have a very special guest coming up in just a few minutes. That you got a really good friend from
the Bay Area.
our first out-of-town guest,
or San Diego, or from San Francisco to Las Vegas.
Yeah, from California.
Yes.
Awesome, dude.
Should be a good
We got
time.
our first out-of-town musician here.
Yeah, we should just go ahead and bring him on screen since there's not a lot of current events to talk about today, other than Happy Father's Day for everybody out
All right.
there.
Well,
And
let me get everything set up
we'll
here.
get the screen set up.
And there we
we
go.
go. Russ Pettit, thank you for coming out to see us.
Yes.
And just a little background, you worked in a cover band that was touring frequently through Reno, and that's how we met, and
Yes.
your guitar skills just absolutely blew me away. And then you started throwing me some links to your original stuff, and I was, it's beyond what the average player, I don't know how else to put it, man. You are a very talented individual, so thank you so much. You're the first person I wanted to bring onto the show personally.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we met. I was playing in Superbad.
Mm-hmm.
That was in a polyester
Big
suit, big wig. You have to see. Sometimes even
I'm
a
having
pink
a hard
polo-
time picturing that one.
Oh God,
It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it
But
was.
your
man.
Racer X persona definitely,
Yes.
your fast fingers, man. It definitely became a thing, man.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun up there, and so I'm hoping that people will enjoy the music that I play today.
Well,
I
it's-
definitely think they will.
It's funny you're based out of San Francisco because
Yes.
before the show, we figured out that even though we've never met,
Right.
we know a hell of a lot of people in the music business out of San Francisco.
Yeah, we do. Met the guys from Night Ranger. Brad Gillis. So
Yep.
guy named Rich Bandoni.
Yep.
I live in the East Bay now. I lived in Concord then, but I live in San Lorenzo, which is right next to Hayward. It's about just a little bit south of Oakland. And
You grew up there, right?
I grew up in Concord, actually.
Yeah. So you
Yeah.
grew up in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
See, I was born in San Francisco, but grew up in Reno. But because I started my radio career in Reno and Sacramento, and Bill Graham did all those shows, and we dealt with a lot of San Francisco bands,
Right.
which is how I ended up meeting Brad and off and on staying down at his place and running his studio for a while. And that's why I said that's why you and I end up knowing a lot of people, because when I stayed with him and hung out with him, I met a lot of the guys that you were talking about down there. Plus
Right.
radio. I mean, I met the guys in Metallica and Journey and Greg Kinn. And I mean, the Bay Area was so close to San Francisco. 415, we were laughing about
close to
that.
Reno.
Yeah.
You know,
Beyond the
but-
Green #1, 1981.
yeah, the
Which shows
band
my age now.
415, we're going all the way back to those days. I'm
Right.
scratching my head going, man, I know this guy in there. He's played in this band, played in that band. But yeah, that's really a trip that we know all those people from back
It's
in
a
the
small
day.
world.
It is.
The music industry in the 70s and 80s was definitely a much tighter-knit community.
Right. It was.
Well, it was actually a real community. Everybody needed each other. The internet wasn't there, so record companies needed radio stations to promote their records. Artists needed record companies because that's the only way you could cut through the clutter to get your stuff out to a national audience. What other way did you have? And radio stations, most of them that I worked for, and I think you'll attest to this, Chronic, even though they say they're not in the business to play music, they're in the business to sell advertising, they still needed music to be number one in the market to sell advertising to make that money.
It's true.
So whether it was a necessary or unnecessary symbiotic relationship, so to speak, it was still there. But those are the end days of that, when that relationship worked, because, for example, the charts. Once the charts, honestly, I mean, I know some of the guys that ran some of the magazines that did the charts for the radio stations, and for the most part, I have to say that the charts were pretty much honest in terms of the airplay. But yeah, I do know that there were in the bottom 80 of the top 100 chart, if somebody needed to sell an ad and there was an up-and-coming band and they knew they were going to work it to some radio stations, then it might chart that week, so that the radio stations would play it and stuff. But getting back to what we're talking about, but see, that was the time when, if you were up and coming and you had a record and the label decided to get behind you, you had a real shot of becoming an artist.
Yeah, it's not like that now.
Famous.
It's not like that at all now.
So tell me a little bit more about your experience growing up in the Bay Area with all this kind of music. We were talking before the show about the concerts.
Experience-wise, I grew up with a mother and father that would frequent concerts.
That's awesome.
Saw all the stuff in the 70s, and there was times that they took their kids with them to shows like Led Zeppelin in '73, which is the same tour as I Guess Song Remains the Same, and the Who Quadrophenia. And so my father was always playing music around the house. He had a stereo room, and it would be different types of music. But
did they take you to any of the concerts in the park during the summer? Any of those free shows that were up there?
No, well, again, we didn't move to Northern California till '74.
So you missed those shows?
Yeah,
because
all
they
the free
ended,
shows.
71, 72?
We were in Garden Grove, California for a few years before, because I'm originally from New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
Then we moved to Southern California, and that's where we did most of the concerts were when we were in Southern California. I don't know, here's a show. Small place. It was the Palladium in Santa Monica or San Bernardino or some small place, and it was, headliner was Steely Dan, Black Oak, Arkansas, and Focus. And I was a little kid. They went to see this concert because they took people, they couldn't find babysitters, so they took us all.
Wow, that's an incredible
That's
musical...
73, yeah.
Yeah, that's a musical education at a young age.
So I was influenced by my father and my parents with music.
Did they play?
No, they didn't. My grandmother did, but really, and my mom did a little bit, and my father could sing like Al Jolson songs.
Really? Cool.
That kind of stuff. But it was just the influence of being around different kinds of, that kind of music.
So when did you start playing? What age?
I picked it up. I started when I was 15 in high school, but it was really more into sports. So I played like football and baseball, and then I played college soccer, and I played actually semi-pro soccer. So I could turn 20 years old, and I stopped playing soccer, and then I went on to start practicing guitar, and then my sister says, hey, why don't you call Joe Satriani on information? I got his home phone number from information to get guitar lessons. So I got guitar lessons from Joe Satriani for about 5-6 months.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
When was this? What year?
That's
It was
amazing.
1987 to early 88, right before Surfing with the Alien hit. And
wow.
I remember him telling me specifically in a lesson that he had to wait to get his record pressed because Michael Jackson's Bad had taken up all the printing press to make to produce the LPs. And he also did one other thing too. I remember I took a lesson with him in July, and then at that time it was hard to get in for lessons, so you had to keep calling. And he didn't give me. He changed his home number. I had to use his studio number at that time. And so then what I did, I came back a month later, and I didn't have any of my stuff, much of my stuff down. I didn't really practice a lot. And so he said, well, look, this spot's available. You know, and he was only charging $24 an hour back then.
Oh, wow.
For lessons.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it was at Secondhand Guitar, or it was Larson's Music. It was right by a bike shop. I remember one time Kirk Hammett popped in and said hello one time. I didn't know who he was at the time. I was just, but that was Kirk Hammett from Metallica, and I wasn't really a Metallica fan back then. But so anyways, he sent me home and says, okay, you do it. You get this stuff down. We're working on 2 octave arpeggios, I think, in major, minor, and diminished arpeggios. Just to get this down next week, and you can be permanent. So I didn't do anything. I practiced all week and ended up hooking up with him for that. And then I studied with a guy named Doug Doppler, one of his more known students, another great player, for a few months. And then, you know, played in the first band I was in was an instrumental band because I was way into Joe's playing that band. And
So why did you gravitate toward that style? Because what we were talking earlier, you were going to explain what kind of style that you play in.
I've always gravitated towards like bands. Like I was into Rush really hardcore one time in high school, and the more progressive stuff. So I've always been gravitated toward music that was a little bit more eclectic, and not your normal top 40 at the time type.
Were you
music.
interested from a technical aspect?
Yeah, technical aspect, and it just spoke to me. You know, like how music does. And I was
Moves you, yeah.
right, and then later on, I had a friend of mine I played with in a band, and he took me to this club called the Kansaki Lounge up in San Francisco in Japanese Town, where all these guys had toured with famous players. Like there was a guy named Kaya Carr played with John McLaughlin, and Steph Birnbaum, who goes by Steph Burns now, on guitar, and then Vicky played conga for the Jay Leno band. She was in the band against keyboard player named Frank Martin, and it was either Billy Johnson on drums or William Kennedy from the Yellow Jackets. And it was $2, and they go up there, and they're just slamming, and they're playing loud and with all this intensity like rock, but they're playing jazz and fusion stuff. And I turned to them and I go, this is jazz? And I was hooked. And then I got into a guy named Mike Stern for a while. Robin Ford's another player I really liked back then. So then I played at a big band in college, at Los Angeles College, and studied jazz that way.
So did you ever play the electric Strat? Did you ever play traditional like rock style guitar?
Yeah, that's when I met him.
No,
Yeah,
but I
played
mean
rock.
in terms
Yeah,
of
well,
like really
Joe
wanting to, or did
Yeah,
you just really?
No, I played. I was really a rock player. It's moved on. This whole thing with this and what's on the CD and stuff is just something that I decided to do, to go off in a completely different genre, and I had to learn what a rumba was and all these different rhythms and stuff like that. But no, I've always been a rock player, first and foremost. And I also, I played in an alternative metal band called Faceplant. So, and then we did like an EP. I also played in cover bands where you had to learn how to play funk rhythm, play R&B, and all that stuff. So I've always liked lots of different styles of music.
Yeah, that's what Clint or Chronic was saying, that you guys met when you were playing with
Superbad.
Superbad.
We played everything, played all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, that's his versatility. The fact that he could literally go from playing like note for note like Eddie Van Halen into something completely poppy, Bruno Mars, into something that was like really deep country. And I mean, his versatility, but it wasn't just that he could play all these different styles, but it was the inflection, the little things that as a musician you notice, that he's not just playing the notes, he is playing the note in the exact way that it needs to be played.
Now I got to ask you something, because I can never remember Michael's last name. I want to say, we talked about this, but because you can play everybody else like that, did you ever run into a situation where you didn't actually have your own sound?
No.
Because there was a guy in the late '80s, when I was running KZEW in Dallas, and Atco, I want to say Atco or Atlantic put him out. And the thing was, he was famous for sounding like everybody else, note for friggin' note.
Right.
You close your eyes and you would swear it was this guy, or this guy. But when you asked what he sounded like, everybody went, See, he developed such a great talent for playing everybody else, because that's what he had to do.
Yeah.
That all
As
of a
a
sudden
gigging
he
musician.
had no identity of his
Well,
own.
that happens. It's like people now think I just do this, and then I've done blues gigs. I filled in one time. I was playing in a band that was called, it's a funny name, Nutty D and the Time Machine. It was a horn band,
Nutty
like the
D
Blues
and the
Brothers.
Time Machine.
That's
Yeah,
a great
name.
Yeah.
Right. Well, the D.D. was this little short Mexican guy, and he could dance like James Brown. But anyways, Nutty D. But that was it was a horn band, an R&B horn band. We did like the Blues Brothers, that kind of thing. And the Mexican cumbia band opened didn't have a guitar player, so I filled in.
Well, why don't you, instead of us talking about it, why don't you
Yeah,
actually
we'd
show
love
us
to
what
hear
we're
something.
talking about, okay?
Okay, so I'm going to play.
Tell us what this is about, what kind of music it is.
It's some people call it world jazz, some people call it world fusion, some people call it flamenco fusion because there's a Spanish overtone, especially with a nylon string guitar. And there's a mixture of jazz. So there's improvisation solos, and I'll be using a looping pedal. So I will be recording live my backing track so I can play the melody or play the solo over top of at the same time. And sometimes I'll, as I will in this song, I'll sometimes use the guitar like a percussion thing also. And that sort of thing.
All right, cool.
And I actually wrote this song just for the show. I haven't got a name for it.
Brand spanking new.
Yeah, because I wanted to kind of ease people into it, because some of the music could be kind of, intense.
It's heady. It's heady. It really does take an ear that appreciates music. So
anyways, here we go.
Without further ado, the 99 Cent Show live from the stub. This is Russ Pettit. Wow. Wow, Russ. Good Lord, sir, you have some fast hands.
Thank you. I'm going to tune while we're talking.
Of course.
Wow.
Now, while you're
That's all I can
tuning,
say. Now, what was that? What style was that?
World Jazz.
World jazz.
It's just a 2-chord song, really, but it. A lot of my stuff has more chords than that, but it's you know, it changes keys. Each chord's its own key.
interesting.
Right, and then I wrote a melody to it and stuff like that, and then I improv. That's the jazz part of the improvisation soloing. So I'll just, you know, it's not like so every solo is always different than that point. So.
Tell me more about your guitar. I haven't seen many acoustic guitars that have 2 inputs.
Right. Okay. So first of all, this is at Kenny Hill. I'm actually an artist on Kenny Hill.
Okay.
NewWorldGuitars.com.
There you go.
There's
Big shout out. Heck yeah.
Give
Give
Kenny
him
a
the plug.
buzz.
That's right.
There you go.
Shout up there, Kenny
All
Hill
right,
Guitars.
Kenny Hill
right there,
Guitars.
gentlemen.
He's out of Ben Lomond. This is actually the Chinese line that I use. It's a great guitar. So the guitar is actually, it's 650 millimeters, which is a little longer than a Strat. It's got a narrower neck than a classical guitars generally are 2 inches. It's 1 7/8. The bridge I have, this is players Daniel Yartu, who I've played with, and another guy I know, James Robinson, turned me on to some of the stuff. So they helped me out as far as when I started doing this style for gear and stuff. The pickup's by Barbera. It's all passive, so it doesn't take a battery. So the great thing about it is it's a piezo pickup, which is a certain type of pickup that picks up the resonant sound in the guitar. But each string has its own. It's built on the saddle piece itself.
Interesting.
Wow.
So there's multiple pickups.
Right. And so the middle one is the condenser mic made by Highlander. And so what I do is I blend the two together.
So what do you get out of each one? What do you think you get out of it?
You know, the Barbera is real present.
Because for a lot of people, they see a guitar with a couple pickups on it. They don't understand why some would have this pickup or that pickup.
Well,
they just know a guitar sound.
I like the way this is. I use when I hit the lead boost. It's the, you know, you get more of the back pickup. The other thing is this pickup never hardly ever feeds back. I could play way louder than this. And then the Highlander picks up, gets all the stuff you would get like if you do it like real flamenco stuff.
Right.
And you get more of the attack of like you're being mic'd. And then one
Yeah,
cable,
now that sounds brighter.
right.
Yeah, you really hear the difference.
Yeah.
So if I was to so one of them the Highlander mic goes direct to the amp, and then what I do with the Barbera is it goes through this aura. And the aura really makes a difference in the sound.
You can hear
The aura is like a picture of a guitar being mic'd, is what the Fishman people talk about.
Yeah, it really warms it up and gives it a nice round kind of a sound.
Right, and then what I do is I use for leads and melodies, I use just a clean boost. And then I have a POG, which is an octave, which I'll use on the next song.
Gives you an automatic chorus.
So it's got an octave higher and an octave lower. So when I turn it up.
That's cool.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I have a chorus pedal. And on some of the leads, I'll use this little bit of a delay. Kind of fattens it
That
up a
nice
little bit.
hallway
And
sound.
then I have the last thing is it's a looping pedal. And that's what I did when I created the backing track.
So now, since you're from the Bay Area, do you end up doing any of those do they still do them too? Those like coffee shop gigs where there's small little restaurants and little nightclubs and stuff?
Yeah, they do. I'm actually going to be playing July 13th at a place called the Los Gatos Coffee Roasting Company. It's a really small place. The room's not much bigger than this room here. It's a little bit longer.
Where is it?
In Los Gatos?
In Los Gatos?
Yeah, downtown
All right.
Los Gatos.
Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you watching the show, if anybody's from the Bay Area or watching the Bay Area, because we know you told a lot of people to check it out.
Yeah, I took
Yeah, we've got a good, we've got 5 consecutive viewers
All
currently right now.
Well, those
so
5
thanks for
viewers,
tuning in, everybody.
thank you very much for tuning in, and make sure and check out the show at where again?
The Los Gatos Coffee Roasting Company in downtown Los Gatos.
And the date?
July 13th, Saturday. And it's 7:30 to 9:30.
That's what I was
And
just
it's a
gonna ask you,
duo,
and
so
the time.
it's me and a flute player.
Oh, really? Wow,
Yeah.
cool.
Which allows me to so we get to it's a lot
Trade
of fun.
back and forth.
Oh,
do
yeah.
some solo
It's a lot
type
of
stuff.
fun.
That's
I
awesome.
loved recording the flute.
And of course, your website at russpettit.com as
Yes.
well.
Or
I
you
did
can
your
Russ
show.
Pettit Music, Russ Pettit on Instagram,
Okay.
Russ Pettit on YouTube.
There you
Can't
go.
do anything in music unless you have,
All your bases covered. Every bit
Right.
of social
Now, one
media
more
covered.
question before we get into another song, 'cause
Sure.
I can see you're ready. I met you as a touring musician. You were gigging constantly.
Northern California.
And now
California.
that you're kind of stepping back from Superbad and some of that kind of stuff and getting more into your personal stuff, do you feel like, is it more fulfilling, definitely, that when you're not having to like grind so hard playing other people's music, that you really get to go see people
Oh
experience?
yeah, and my back feels better because I don't have to lift a heavy PA.
Now, are you making a living doing what you're doing
I teach
now?
guitar 5 days a week. I teach
Oh, cool.
Monday through
So-
Thursday at Guitar Showcase in San Jose,
Mm-hmm.
and I teach Saturdays at ABC Music in Castro Valley. And I'm a dad, I'm a homeowner.
But like
I'm
a lot of
married,
musicians,
yeah.
you got to have a day job, whether it's involved in music or something. You try to get involved in music because you're a player, obviously.
Right,
But
so I teach for a living.
yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Beautiful. Well, what are you going to play for us this time?
This tune's on the CD. It's called The Chase, and there's a lot of time signature changes in this. I don't know if you guys know what a time signature is, but anyways, it starts in 6/4, almost like an Afro-Cuban thing, and then it goes into 6/8, into 7/8, back to 6/8, and
Really?
at the end I'm going to layer loops. So at the end, there'll be a pause. I won't be at the end of the song.
Okay.
And I'll put a bass line down, then I'll put a percussion part down, and then I'm going to layer 3 different chord voicings, and then I will solo over it with my hog pedal on it.
Awesome.
So okay. So here we go.
All right. Russ Pettit.
I guess that part I was talking about.
Yeah. Good Lord, man. That was intense. Like, you know, that layering you did at the end had a very like Persian-esque kind of feel to it.
Yeah, I'm in what's called G harmonic minor, so it's all. I kind of took that lick. I moved it down.
But it almost had a very sitar feel to it, you know? For sure. That was very cool, man. So what, again, like you've had these amazing teachers, you've grown up around all this amazing music. Like, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years continuing down this path? Like,
I mean, I don't know, because all I'm doing is this kind of music now and playing this because it's what I want to do, and teaching, and you know.
Are you putting out a series of records? Do you aspire to record?
I am going to. Well, yeah, we're going to be recording. I'm going to be recording a 3-song record just with guitar stuff, and then the flute guy and I are going to do it. That'll be like a little EP, and then the flute guy and I are going to record a full length, and just see where it goes.
I loved working with the flute. There was a band that I tried to get signed when I had my studio in Dallas called the Dreamcatchers, and we had a flute on a couple of the songs. And it was so much fun to record that thing and get it mixed to where it just kind of floated between the two speakers during these couple songs. And these girls had real angelic kind of voices. It was kind of a Grateful Dead kind of laid back kind of kind of a deal. It wasn't anything hardcore. It was very instrumental. It was a lot of, they were into drum circles and you know all that kind of stuff.
A lot of heady stuff.
Yeah,
Hippie
I've got
stuff.
those records around here somewhere in my bag of stash of all the different albums I've worked on and recorded and stuff over the years. One of these days I'll drag them out. Lapdog's the one, man. I still shake my head. Michael, if you know, if those guys ever see me and any of those guys in the Lapdog guys, man, that's the band that got away. William Ray was the guy's name that was the guitar player. Dude, I've never seen. I mean, you got to remember, I saw Stevie Ray, I saw all these guys before they made it. You know, Jeff Healey, everybody, right? Because being in the record business, you see them all when they first come out. I'm working in Dallas, running a nightclub down there. Me and my partner from the used to be the entertainment director for the House of Blues, or I'm not for the House of Blues, for the Hard Rock. I'm getting ahead of myself. Was for the Hard Rock. Tony, him and I opened a club called the R&R Revolution down in Development. Had it down there for about 4 years down in the entertainment district in Dallas. And his band Lapdog with this guy William Ray was a 3-piece. William was about 2'6", long hair down to here, kind of tall and, you know, kind of muscularly built. Had that the Strat looked like a piece of matchwood in his hand when he played, and he played in the style of Hendrix and Stevie Ray and that kind of thing in terms of the feel he had for the guitar. But there were times you'd look at him and listen to what was coming out of the speakers and look at him and swear to God it was two different things. What his hands were doing is not what was coming out of the speakers. But he had that kind of feel for it. And man, I got them so close.
Just make it sing.
I got them so friggin' close. Warner Brothers was interested. I had the lawyer from Deep Blue Something, the Breakfast at Tiffany's hit. He was based in Denton. He was trying to work with him and get him going. And man, it was the one that just got away. I heard from a friend of mine, he ended up going in the Army, having a couple of kids and, you know, doing the whole thing and got out. There's just so many people that just, you know, that may have had that gift and that ability and for some reason just didn't get the right break or weren't at the right place at the right time to take advantage of it.
Right, or the style maybe not is.
Well, they were all going to University of Texas. The drummer was
North
in
Texas?
Oh yeah,
North Texas.
Yeah, the drummer was in the 2 o'clock jazz band. You know, the 1 o'clock was the best, and the 2 was the next. It went up and up like this. Right. I want to say he was the leader of the drum line in the one particular section that he was in, and I want to say he was the drummer for the 2 o'clock jazz band, and then Joey, the bass player. That's what happened is his parents were concert pianists, dueling concert pianists. They had to act together. And Joey liked to cook. He used to, I forget which chain restaurant he worked there, but one of the things he did was cook. Well, Mom and Dad didn't want him to go into the music business, from what I remember, and they offered to send him to Cordon Bleu School to become a chef.
Right.
So, you know, instead of staying with the band because we had gotten to the point we're ready to sign contracts and stuff,
Right.
and they bailed. You know, Darren didn't want to do it. He wanted to stay in his blues band, stay independent. But William, man, he had that certain thing that like Jeff Healey and just guys that had a unique style about them that nobody
Right.
else did. You know, I've got one video of them of a TV show that I shot for the Paramount and Fox networks as a pilot called "You Heard 'Em Here First."
Huh.
And they were one of the 3 bands I had on the show. So I do have one video of him performing somewhere somewhere stashed back at the house, and all those records I did.
Well, we were talking about your album on the way over, Russ. To get back
Yeah.
to a little bit more of your music, you actually licensed music, and that's one of the reasons
Yes.
why we at the 99 Cent Show are all about doing original music. But you
Right.
actually have a licensed version of Hotel California on your
Right.
record.
Yeah.
Could you tell us, the viewers that don't know the woes of going through licensing music and the strains that it can put on you? Can you tell them a little bit about the process of getting,
Yeah, I
to play
remember-
Eagles music?
Well, the Eagles, also my first CD I did Kashmir by Led Zeppelin, so I had to do the same thing. And so I remember the Kashmir one a lot better only because it was the first one, and I remember it was, having to do the license, and then when we did the license, it was up to 6 minutes, and then after 6 minutes, because Kashmir's a really long song, and I cut 2 minutes off it, it was still 2 minutes over the 6 minutes. So it turned out that I had to pay 12 cents for every CD I made. Doesn't matter if I gave the CD to anybody
Yep.
or whatever.
Yeah, that's part of licensing. Yeah.
license, and then I did it through Harry Fox.
yeah, I was just going to ask you, did you go through Harry
There's
Fox?
that one. I didn't. There's a new one called Easy License was what I did, the Eagles one. That's a newer
Well,
one.
Harry was the clearance house forever
Right.
for all things mechanical and
And so
publishing.
then it was the total was like $128 I had to pay in royalties, and then I got
for 1,000 CDs.
Right. So
Yeah.
the CD stuff is not that big a deal. That's not that bad, actually,
Right.
if you really think about it. It's the downloads is where you get hammered.
You got to pay for download. Yep.
Yeah, but the thing is you still paid like $20, and it's for like 25 downloads, and then so you actually have to pay more because it's less of them.
You have to pay for them to download your product?
Well, what it is,
Anytime his
you
product's
got to get a
downloaded.
license, a licensing to sell that song.
to sell
as a
that song. Yeah,
and they
yeah,
have
yeah.
streaming licensing now too.
Crazy.
Well, it's one of the reasons that we're not running a radio station
Yeah.
off this like I wanted
Right.
to. Originally, I really wanted to put together a classic rock station in the style that you basically would have heard if you tuned in, say, in 1988, 1989, 1990.
Right.
It would be current as far as that goes, but it would be a classic rock station with all the right presentation. When we started looking into it, and it turns out if you have a stick, if you got a station, then it's like the old days. You pay one royalty. But evidently, they don't want anybody like old-style radio guys like me or younger guys like him to come from the radio world and emulate what we did, because now there's 4 licenses, as far as I know, that you have to do. And that's the thing. See, just like with you, it's like, all right, if you're committed to do this, then we didn't even go into it, because it's like, all right, there's a minimum, there's so much for this, so much for that.
Right.
So the loophole we came around is we started thinking about it, and I went to Chronic and said, back in the day when we ran progressive, especially me more than him, because he unfortunately got stuck in an era where
My music
you
was
didn't
picked for me. I
yeah,
had
his
very
music was picked
limited
for him.
limited functionality to
Right.
choose songs that were
Right,
playing
right,
on my
right.
playlist.
Where I come from, the card box, right? It was still formatted, but it was still, you could pull out the songs you wanted, program your own show,
Right.
Within the limitations of what the station was doing, stuff like that. So when we started talking about it, I said, well, man, basically back in the day when FM first started, it was the Wild Wild West, and nobody knew the music, so you were basically breaking every artist. So what if we basically cut out the middleman? Because the You Heard 'Em Here First TV show was based on the idea that somebody saw the Beatles or the Stones 6 months before they got a record deal. So if you saw them then, would you buy a copy of that performance, that CD or that DVD before they got a deal?
Right.
And and we try to find the best talent that on the show that's almost ready to break,
Right.
but hasn't signed their life away to publishing deals and other things out, so they can still deal with the artist directly. Well, then we came up with the idea. It's like, well, we could actually build a radio station out of unsigned artists, guys that are so close to being signed it's not funny, but still aren't tied into publishing deals. And the reason I'm skittish on publishing deals is I don't know everything there is to know about sync licenses, but I know a very bitter friggin' lesson having to do with when I worked with Dragon Ball Z.
Right.
Back
When
in
I
the
was the narrator in Captain Ginyu, I wrote and scored, along with my friend Mark Aiken, the soundtrack to 2 of their movies. And Dream Theater was part of the soundtrack. And
Oh,
to make a
wow.
long story short, because the contract didn't get signed when it was supposed to, and sync license fees
Mm-hmm.
are not like mechanicals and publishing, where there is a set fee like you did. 6
Right.
minutes, you got to pay X. 7 minutes, you got to pay Y. 8 minutes, you got to pay Z. No, the video sync licenses is how much money you got.
take
Or
this
how about
much.
this? If you know a lot they do now is they do a cover version of a song instead of getting the real version. 'Cause
Still, you know what? If it's to video, how much money you got?
Oh wow.
There are absolutely no rules to sync. You have to go to the actual publisher. There's no Harry Fox agency like that where
Yeah,
you
there's
can
no
just go
middleman.
get a one-stop. Because that's the thing where you're thinking, okay, well, maybe they've advanced sync licenses to the point now where, like Harry Fox, where you're dealing with your mechanicals, you could go someplace, play a fat fee for a sync license, and then turn around and either play it as a cover tune or play the master and do it. Oh, no, 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 Nanette. This is why you don't find internet radio stations that are independent radio stations unless
Right.
they got a shitload
Cost
of
too-
money,
yeah, cost too
or
much
they're
money.
or they're offshore where nobody can get to them, and why the stations here locally or Boston or wherever can have an internet presence,
Yep.
because they're covered under their stick license.
Right.
So it really doesn't do a lot of good for the artists at the end of the day, because for them getting
That
quote
was the
unquote
point,
4 different
yeah.
royalties, if nobody does it, there's no 4 royalties to pay.
But do you see that, like, as your record sales, the point I was trying to get with the question anyways, do you see, like, the cost being worth it to you to be able to have something that's familiar to the average listener that helps them ease into your music a little bit?
That's the whole idea when you do why you do a cover
Correct.
tune. Like Cashmere is still probably the most downloaded song I sell. Even more so than Hotel California.
Where do
believe
you
it or
think, is it just a pure instrumental?
not. Yeah.
And so, you know, like, I'm not going to lie, doing weddings and stuff, I have downloaded so many, like, random person does guitar instrumental of this song.
Right, right,
Like,
right.
I'm not even kidding. I have spent a lot of money on Amazon and iTunes buying stuff like that for weddings and corporate events that wanted something without the lyrics, or, you know.
The elevator version of a
Correct.
hit song. Exactly. What we used
Right.
to call the elevator version, which was the cover tune without the lyrics.
Right.
Yeah. There were companies that made shitloads of money doing that back in the day, man. TM Century and
Yep.
those companies did all the commercial work. That's how you got license-free music for your commercials.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier too. Why they do is they'll hire people to come in and cover the song. So they just pay the license fee like I did for Cashmere or whatever.
Yeah.
Because if you use the real version of a popular Aerosmith, whoever it is,
It's through the roof.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's
Right.
through the roof of how much
Yeah.
you got to pay for it. So they're like Guitar Hero. I get dug up he does Guitar Hero stuff, and he'll record popular songs.
Yep, they go in and
they
they
just
have-
pay licensing fee for selling. They don't have to pay a
Yeah,
licensing.
but see those video games, much like the sync license, they go in and cut a deal for those.
Yeah. They
That's
cut
not
mechani-
like
it's
yours.
a mechanical deal.
See, that's the thing. CDs and music without video attached to it is a completely separate thing, and it goes all the way back to vinyl and everything, and it's kind of a standard
And
thing.
the other thing that musicians got screwed on is the whole YouTube thing and the stream, and all the music's on YouTube, right?
Yeah. Well, a lot of what happened is that a lot of artists, and this was, I
That's
had
why
had this
we're having problems
conversation
with
with
that
him.
now.
The radio stations gave the average consumer the idea that music should be free, that I shouldn't have to pay for it, because they're not thinking of the advertising that is paying for it.
Actually, after all, you could tape it off the radio station.
Right.
That's
and
true.
so
I used to do that.
I literally
That's it.
exactly. We all did.
They
I made
tapes.
mixtapes
Yes,
for girlfriends
yes.
off of my favorite R&B
Oh,
songs
God, I
in the
can- I had, like,
1990s.
yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
That's the same mentality. Well,
Waiting
the
for
music
that
is free when
request
you
the
beat
song
it
and then
to it.
wait. Well,
Yeah. Until you
record
get
it.
it perfect. It would take you weeks sometimes to get that perfect mixtape. But that's that mentality that I think that really drove Napster, was the, why would I pay for this? It's a digital file when I can make unlimited copies of it. It's, you know, and that's the mentality of, oh, well, I'll pay for a CD because it's a physical copy.
Right.
But digital copies, I'll never pay for a digital copy. And I admit it, I was guilty of it for quite a long time. But when I started seeing the real effect of the way it was changing the music industry, and I saw how it could potentially affect radio and affect my ancillary businesses working in music, that's when, you know, I really started realizing, if I want to have a career in this, you got to support the artist.
Well,
Yeah.
this begs the question, what we talked about the other day, just out of curiosity. I just want to hear your guys' opinion again. Do you think that that a whole piracy issue, because that's what we're talking about here, is the fact that people getting it quickly and freely, led Marvel to release the last Endgame movie in China and every place simultaneous everywhere, because they figured, okay, if we dump it on the market every place, we're going to get all the people that want to see it on the big screen in the full thing, as opposed to, oh, well, I couldn't see it on the big screen, but I can get it now for $10
Game of
from a
Thrones
pirate
did
and
that
see it
after
on my
season
house.
8.
Yeah.
It was released the next day. After that Sunday, I actually bought it the next day.
Game of Thrones?
Yeah, on iTunes. You could buy it.
Don't get us started on Game of
Well,
Thrones.
we don't have to talk about the show. And
No, it's true.
No, bottom line is, have you seen this? What is that guy's name that does the pitch meetings? I want to give him a shout out.
Let me look. I
Look
will
on.
search
Have
him
you
up.
ever seen the pitch meeting guy who does pitch meetings for films and stuff?
No.
I got turned on to him by, I want to say, was it Greg or was it you?
It was Greg, but I had seen it.
The guy does a
similarly.
pitch meeting for the Game of Thrones season
His
8.
YouTube page is called Pitch Meeting.
Yeah.
And so he takes all these random movies where people are complaining about things, saying like, this doesn't make sense, this doesn't make sense. And he turns it into like, what if you were sitting in the office of the executive producer talking to the creative team, getting sold on,
And you're selling the producer or the guy on the shit box that you're going to put together. And why? And one of the funniest lines is when he talks about all this stuff, and the guy behind the desk goes, "Sounds like you need 20 episodes." I wait, no, we only want 6. You can have 20, but we only want 6. It just, there's a lot of stuff on YouTube that's just, oh man, really? Somebody else put this up?
Yeah.
There are really a few creative people
by
out
Screen
there.
Rant, which is
that what it is?
website that always deconstructs movies and tells you like this plot hole was here, this was here.
I got to give that guy credit. He is a very entertaining guy on YouTube. It's not like he makes a lame pitch or something out. It is cut well together. It's written well, and it really goes to the heart of what a lot of people said about the last versions of Game of Thrones. I mean, like you said, he probably pulled every one-liner that everybody said complaining about it and put it into that pitch meeting, just bam, 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 bam,
well
bam.
produced.
It really was.
Well, all right, we are down to our last 10 minutes of the show, so let's get to your final track.
Music.
Tell us a little bit more about it.
The final track is a tune I call Salute. It's not on any. It's going to be recorded soon. It's a dedication to the trio of Paco de Lucia, Al Di Meola, and John McLaughlin. And they did a record in the early '80s called Friday Night in San Francisco that actually sold 6 million copies.
Wow.
An acoustic, shredding acoustic, crazy record. So it was awesome, and that's where the style comes from. They're kind of the guys that made that stuff happen. So.
Well, you definitely shredded up. Russ Pettit, all the way from the Bay Area, right here in Las Vegas at the Stump.
I'll be using my
99 Cent Show.
looper too. So here we go.
Man,
Dude, that was incredible.
I was literally getting like lost in the sound for a minute and just like I literally zoned out, man. That was so intensely like I don't know. It was hard to kind of wrap your mind around at first, and then it got real visual and I don't know. It was beautiful, man.
It's the first song I actually wrote in that style. So it starts out in 5/8/1. It's 1, 4, 5. Then it goes, and most of it's in 6/8.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys know much about meters and stuff like that?
I played enough percussion, yes, to know about counting my notes out to stay on time. You know.
Yes, yes.
I'm a good enough player to get myself in trouble.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool, man. Well,
man, it was awesome having you down here, man. It's incredible you came down from San Francisco to be with us and stuff.
Well,
I know you brought Mama down here to have a weekend vacation
Yeah,
too, right?
I brought it up to her. Says, hey, it's my friend of mine. Chronic called me, wanted me to come out, and she goes, no kids, let's go.
yeah, exactly. An adult vacation.
Yes.
So it all worked out great.
Worked great.
And on
That's
that note, I
awesome.
don't want you to miss your show, so we'll call that a wrap and
All right.
make sure that we send people to your.
Where can they get your CD?
At russpettit.com, www.russpettit.com, cdbaby.com, iTunes, wherever you can download it, it's there. It's called The Travels of a Fallen Leaf.
Okay.
All right.
Love it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Russ Pettit, all the way from San Francisco, hanging out with the Captain and Chronic on the 99 Cent Show. We're awful glad you hung out with us tonight, too, because this was a great show.
Did you want to play a little something to exit us out with? If you got anything else to
Yeah, man, give us an
flourish with us?
Give us a running out kind of jam.
A jam. All right, well, you know what? I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll play, if your bass player would have been here, this is what I wanted to play. See if you guys recognize this.
Yeah, you're going to get us in trouble.
You can play a riff on that.
Harry, we don't need a license for it. We're not
It was
gonna
too
play
short.
it.
It was too short. We don't know what that
you got to
was.
stay under 20 seconds, I think it is.
I don't even know what it is. I just don't want to get sued. It's
Yeah, I
hard
can
enough
play
to
something.
find the stump. Most people can't find the stump, but I bet the record police could probably do it.
I'll bet you they would. Find our IP.
Besides, I'd rather hear something that he wrote and played.
Okay.
That's why we got you on here. Other people wrote that stuff. We'll have
Let me
them
think
on.
off the top of my head real quick. All right, we can do this one.